There's an old trope which people have leaned on over and over again, that trade wars are unwinnable. The thesis of this is, in fact, you can win a trade war.
Yeah, and the way that we do that is that we broaden the definition of winning, right?
Okay.
So think about winning not as, becoming richer, but as kind of minimizing your wounds, right? So if you think about a real war, no one wins in a real war. People die, it's terrible.
Yes.
But in some cases, you might have to fight, right? And so winning in that case, as in trade wars, means minimizing your wounds, doing as best as you can, because in this era of economic conflict, we can't avoid the battle.
So before we get to how to do that, why are we in an era of economic conflict? Because one of the things you talk about is how trade used to be kind of something that you took a little bit for granted, and for a policy, it just kind of worked. I mean, I remember studying this as a kid in the early 2000s. There was this McDonald's rule, right? No economy that had a McDonald's had ever gone to war with another economy that had a McDonald's, because the trade kind of was the buffer for that. And then Russia invaded Georgia the first time around, and that went out the window. But why did it work and it doesn't work now?
Yeah, so I think the simple answer is, we used to have a rules-based system, right? And you essentially had the Americans as the kind of global Navy fleet, right? Patrolling the seas, making sure everyone played by the rules. And essentially what happened is, over time, we had the emergence of China. They didn't play by the rules. Trust was broken down. And the Americans said, you know what? No, we're not going to be the Navy fleet anymore. We're going to be the pirates. And we're going to fight for ourselves. And pirates bring a lot of chaos with them. But the underlying problem, which is that you have China, doing its own thing, not playing by the spirit of the rules, means that old rule book just isn't going to work anymore. And so, we've got this kind of, playing field where we can't just switch off our brains and say, well, what would the rule book say? We need to, engage and react and learn how to fight.
As you talk, I think of that Mark Carney speech at Davos, in which he really says the rules-based order has failed. There's a recognition now, as this trade war continues to unfold, that maybe it wasn't so great after all, that a lot of economies were left to the wayside as kind of the larger powers were able to enjoy the benefits of it. How do you react to that? How good, I guess, to put it bluntly, was the rules-based order for most countries in the world?
So, okay. I mean, yeah, I think there was always this sense that, the rules-based, who wrote the rules, right? I mean,
winners and losers,
the biggest player, the US wrote the rules. It was pretty happy with the rules when it wrote them. That said, for a smaller country, right, if you're not in a rules-based system, you're in a power-based system. And they don't do very well in a power-based system, right? And so okay, maybe there were some things about the rules-based system that weren't, nice or fair. But it might be better than a chaotic situation where essentially might is right. And if you find yourself opposing, on the other side of a US or a China, then, good luck to you. Yeah.
So let's look at the recent trip of President Trump to China as kind of an example of where you think that went well, where you think that fight was executed correctly, who you think came out on top, and maybe some tips for negotiating with China on trade in the future.
Okay, so now I, as like every other trade nerd in the world, was watching this meeting closely, was expecting or hoping for some deliverables, some concrete things we could analyze. And, at the point at which Trump left for DC, there wasn't really much. Right. And I think, this really speaks to the fact that we're not in a world in which President Trump can, beat the Chinese with tariffs, and the Chinese will kind of meekly say, oh, well, what do you want? Do you want us to announce some purchases to make you feel good? Right, we've kind of moved on from that.
Why doesn't that work? Can you break down why that's just not a winning way to approach this?
Well, I mean, the simple answer is that China can fight back, right? I mean, we saw last year when China threatened the restrictions of exports of rare earths, these critical components that go into the defense industry, the autos industry. China has weapons too. And after the first Trump administration, the Chinese went away and said, okay, we didn't enjoy that. How do we prep? And this speaks to the bigger lesson when you want to fight a trade war, which is, trade wars are like real wars, and logistics win real wars. Prep wins real wars. You need strategy, you need planning, you need to build up your defense before you run onto the battlefield all guns blazing, right? And that's what Trump didn't do last year, and now I think we're in this kind of stalemate because the Chinese are, pointing at their nice big shiny weapon and saying, gee, wouldn't it be terrible if we used it?
There are the principals fighting this war, and then there are those who are kind of caught up in it. And we had a conversation about a week ago with these spice importers who fought back in the court system against the president's latest round of tariffs. And one of the things we asked them was, how did they decide to do this? Why did they feel like they had a shot at subverting what had been put in place, and they felt like they had to, and they thought about the wider impact of what they might do. In a trade war, what is the role of the regular person or the regular company who may disagree with the broader principles of the war, wants to fight back, I guess, against those who are waging it?
Yeah, I mean, within the U.S. system, one of the main constraints on President Trump's activity has been the courts, right? And in the medium run, in the long run, if the U.S. wants to restore trust in its trading partners, then it's going to need to show that it's going to behave less erratically, right? And so, that court system is an institution that actually should play to the U.S.'s advantage, right? And so, like one of the U.S. strengths is it has the rule of law, right? It has this kind of, it's supposed to have this kind of predictability to what it does. And so, good on that importer for saying, well, what are the rules we have? We're at least going to play by our rules, and are we, going to make sure we meet those? But I guess realistically, I think, a lot of ordinary people are kind of caught up in this, right? And the sad reality is these are big weapons being thrown around by big players, and we really just have to hope the fighting ends.
We've only got about a minute left, but how effective are tariffs when trying to create an even playing field for trade? I had an economist once tell me, trying to tariff your way out of a trade imbalance is like him walking into Home Depot with econ books and being upset that they won't even out their lumber that he's bought for his house. But is there a better way to do this?
I mean, look, tariffs are not they're not a reliable instrument for reducing your imbalances if that's the thing you care about. Yeah. Now, if there are particular, products that are only coming from one place, maybe tariffs can give you an incentive to diversify away from that place. You need to make sure it's not going through other places, but yeah, it's hard.